In this video, I want to go over some historical facts and some key events of how they use your habits to create laws to use against you. Okay, now during the prohibition periods when say Indians, so-called Indians, was making what they call firewater, which is alcohol. They banned alcohol. Okay, now we're going to get into when they started to ban and create laws for marijuana. Okay, say 1900, 1930s. For 3 decades, marijuana was an ingredient in various medications. It was marked as a painkiller, but were also used for sedation and to treat muscle spasm. However, this is key, during the same time period, Mexican immigrants introduced recreational use of marijuana. Now, I got some articles here that we're going to go through the timeline. Okay, let's look at the timeline. But remember this, Mexican immigrants introduced recreational use of marijuana. Now, if you look at this timeline, during the Prohibition period, 1911, okay, the sale of Indian hemp, okay, California, all these bans, they banned it. You can't bring it here. It wasn't criminalized yet. But until 1931, Texas declared cannabis a narcotic, allowing up to a life sentences for possession. This is key. And you ask yourself, where's Texas, right? Let's go to the map. I have a map. Let me see. Now, this map will show you, if you look at any map, you have Mexico, right? Then you, beside Mexico, Central America, you have Texas. Then beside Texas, you have Louisiana. Keep this in mind. According to the story from the Historical Channel and PBS, after the Mexican Revolution of 1910, Mexican immigrants flooded into the U.S., introducing to American culture the recreational use of marijuana. The drug became associated with the immigrants, and the fear of and prejudice against the Spanish-speaking newcomers became associated with marijuana. Anti-drug campaigners warned against encroaching marijuana menace, and terrible crimes were attributed to marijuana and the Mexicans who use it. See how they give these names and they label these names. They come up with these campaigns. Marijuana menace. If you look up marijuana menace, you will see all type of propaganda through music, through mainly movies, that they use movies and campaigns, ads, and newspaper articles, all this stuff to put this misinformation out about the use of marijuana and what it can do for you. And I'm gonna show you how racially based that these campaigns are. Okay, now this is important. These next 2 paragraphs are important. During the Great Depression, massive unemployment increased public resentment of Mexican immigrants who it was feared might take what scant employment was available. At the same time, certain individuals saw an opportunity to gain power by escalating public and governmental concern about the problem of marijuana. This instigated a flurry of questionable research which linked the use of marijuana with violence, crime, and other social deviant behavior. By 1931, 29 states have outlawed marijuana. Now, by 1930, because they've been promoting propaganda so much that it became law. Marijuana became, the use of marijuana and having marijuana on you became law. At first, it was just banned, but they introduced this Narcotic Act that marijuana became law. and this is important too. A chief proponent for the criminalization of marijuana was Harry J. Anslinger, who began in 1930, served as the first commissioner of the U.S. Treasury Department Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Some critics claim that sensing the nearing end of prohibition, Anslinger turned against marijuana to strengthen his position and the stature of his department. Okay, now this guy is key. He was basically Harry J. Anslinger was basically the person who promoted war on drugs, and that's how they get you. They figure out your habit, what type of habit you had, and then they criminalize that habit, and they put laws in place to lock you up for your habits. You see what I'm saying? During the 80s, they flooded black neighborhoods with crack, cocaine, and all the other stuff. And then they came out with these harsh drug laws against crack users and drug dealers. And that's how they get you based on race. Although you don't see it based on race because they're saying, oh, it's crack and this and that. And you don't associate these habits with a race. You just look at it, oh yeah, they trying to get rid of crack. That's how come they know that certain people might become crackheads or might use crack, but majority of the people, because it's flooded in the black community, that we could take them out. We could take out the black community. Just like what I'm reading now about marijuana. They knew that Mexicans was coming over the border and they was taking these jobs down south. So they had to criminalize these Mexicans, and we have to figure out what is their habit and make their habit a crime, because white people really wasn't, well, they was smoking marijuana or whatever, but then so they had, during the Great Depression, they have a problem with these immigrants coming over here, taking their jobs, claiming they're taking their jobs and taking all their stuff. See, blacks didn't have everything was separated in the 1930s. So blacks didn't really suffer from the Great Depression because everything was desegregated. I mean, everything was segregated. So we was already separated. Then on top of that, before the Great Depression, we was coming off the plantation. We didn't have too much of anything anyway, but our skills and our know-how and what we learned from the plantation. So therefore, when the market crashed, when the Great Depression happened, it didn't really affect black people as much as it affect white people. So now, we wasn't so much of an enemy, but they had these new Americans or newcomers coming into America, which was the Mexican immigrants that was coming to America, and that was the threat. That became the threat of America. Okay. Now we're gonna go and talk about this guy, Harry J. Anslinger. Okay, Anslinger had been characterized as an early proponent of the war on drugs, as he zealously advocated for and pursued harsh drug penalties and association regarding, in particular regarding marijuana. As a propagandist for the war on drugs, he focused on demonizing racial and immigrant groups. He focused on demonizing racial and immigrant groups. Now, you say, who's the racial groups? There are blacks, and I'm gonna prove this. And we already know who was the immigrant groups, although there was white immigrants here too, but these I'm gonna show you particularly from his own mouth, from his own words, his own quotes. What did he mean? Now you have to understand too, back in the early 1900s and the late 1800s, these white people basically told you how they felt about you in your face. It wasn't no secret. It wasn't no hiding like today's times is. You know, they wasn't hiding how they felt about you. They made it public. You could find public speeches that some of these politicians made calling us niggas and darkies and spicks and wetbacks and all types of racial slurs that they use in their political campaign, their political speeches. Now, let's if you want to know what propaganda means, let's go back because he was a propagandist. So let's see what propaganda means. Propaganda means information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. All this stuff is political, you know. And this what he did. He used articles, misleading articles, movies. Look at the Reefer Madness. Reefer Madness was a movie created by white people with nothing but white people in the movie, but it was targeting Mexicans. So when they use fear to put in the public's eye, you know, as far as white people, they use this fear to scare them into passing these laws and getting on board to what they want to criminalize blacks and Mexicans and some immigrants, because all immigrants wasn't really target, which not as much as this Mexicans. We're talking about the Mexicans right now. Okay, we already know that blacks was always targeted. Now we know that there are other immigrant groups that was here, Irish, Europe, other European groups that was here as well. But this what he said, this is his target. Negroes, okay, we was never immigrants. Okay, we were slaves. Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Why would he say entertainers? We're going to that. There's satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana usage. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others. So this is the whole plan that why they trying to criminalize people who use marijuana, because they knew that it was popular in the jazz community and it was popular among immigrants, and that music really connected Europeans and black people. Music did. So if the music or the same cause is connecting people, because we was doing slavery before so-called white privilege and the color scheme came about, when they was, instead of identifying you by your nationality, they identify you by color. Before that came about, we was identifying with the struggle. If you was struggling, you was poor and you was struggling, I'm struggling and I'm poor and everything, we're going to identify by that struggle and we're going to help each other out, because I know what you're going through and you know what I'm going through. So let's put our stuff together to make a meal. Okay, you probably got some fatback greens or whatever. I probably got potatoes and chicken or whatever. We could bring it together and create our own meal out of that, because we was people that was poor, which was white trash. They was poor. They didn't have much, and indigenous servants didn't have much. They was like slaves, right? They just was of another race, but they was treated like slaves as well. So the slaves didn't have much. So, but when we put things together, and then we'll realize who's the real enemy was. It's us against them. And then when the color scheme came about, then it became white against black. So regardless of what, they just took away all the social problems that you guys have as whites and put you in a different bracket and say no. Then it became a skin color thing. Okay, let's see what else this guy said. Some of his other quotes. Okay, marijuana influences Negroes to look at white people in the eye, step on white men's shadows, and look at a white woman twice. See, he's trying to criminalize black people by the use of smoking marijuana. Reefer made darkies think they're as good as white men. See, darkies, that was another racial slur that they used to call blacks. Okay, the primary reason to outlaw marijuana its effect on a degenerate races, Tamil, Spanish, and all that other stuff, you know. Okay, let's look at this. I wish I could show you what a small marijuana cigarette can do to one of our degenerate Spanish speaking residents. That's why our problem is so great. The greatest percentage of our population is composed of Spanish speaking persons, most of who are low mentally because of social and racial condition. See, it's always separated through social status, you know. Now check this out. Marijuana is taken by musicians, and I'm not speaking about good musicians, but the jazz type. See, he didn't think that jazz was good music, you know, but it was revolutionized during the 30s. Jazz did, ragtime, jazz, blues, all that stuff was revolutionized during the 30s, during the Great Depression. That's how come a lot of jazz music, you hear it talk about the sad times, whatever, because that was what was going on at the time, you know, and it was, and people can relate to that because that's what they going through. The jazz talking about what's happening out in the world, just like music of today is talking about what's going on. Some music talking about what's going on in the world. And then they weaponize music to go against us. That's another video. But during this time, we talking about jazz. It socialized. People socialized jazz music to what the problems they was going through. Okay. And check this. This is another quote that I found interesting. Colored students at the University of Minnesota partying with white female students, smoking marijuana and getting their sympathy with stories of racial persecution. Result, pregnancy. And that's another thing they were scared about with these interracial relationships, interracial marriage comes these biracial babies. And now, if they continue having these interracial relationships, now because of the man is because a lot of times back in the day they socialize your race based off the man race, based off the father race. So now these black men is getting these white women pregnant. Now one drop of black blood will make that white baby a nigger. You know what I'm saying? Will make that baby a black baby. And they know that. So therefore, guess what's going to happen? If we continue having these interracial marriage, interracial relationships, they're going to wipe them out in the future. So we have to secure the white race. So we have to come up with things to protect us, protect our whiteness. So we have to criminalize black people, interracial marriage, interracial dating. We have to criminalize the Mexicans, criminalize all these people through the war on drugs. The war on drugs is basically their racial laws. It's racial laws. Because they could criminalize you without criminalizing you. The National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws developed the Uniform State Narcotic Drug Act in 1934 due to the lack of restrictions in the Harris Act of 1914. Okay, the Harris Act was a revenue-producing act, and while it provided penalties for violations, it did not give authority to the states to exercise police power regarding either seize of drug use and illicit trade or punishment of those responsible. Now, this Harrison Act of 1914 it was producing money to fight this ban against certain hemp and marijuana, certain narcotics or whatever, but it wasn't harsh. So they had to get people on board to come up with a harsher act, a harsher law to fight against these newcomers, these new immigrants that's coming over with the marijuana law. And this is what he was promoting through his propaganda campaign. A chief proponent for the criminalization of marijuana was Harry J. Anslinger, who beginning in 1930 served as the first commissioner of the U.S. Treasury Department's Federal Bureau of Narcotics. So Texas made cannabis, marijuana, a drug now to get him involved. So now he can start promoting a new law to criminalize people who smoke marijuana, which majority of the people was Mexicans that I showed you before. They use it as recreational use. At first, cannabis, marijuana was a drug to help muscle spasm, relax, and all this stuff. So when they start saying that majority of the Mexicans were using it, oh no, we got to make it a drug, and we gotta make harsher laws, and that's what they did. And I'm gonna show you the propaganda that they did, like the movie Reefer Madness in the 1930s. That was a movie that was that really pushed the propaganda agenda, although it showed a bunch of white people in it, but it pushed their narrative that we have to do something and everything. Let me show you some quotes of this guy that you want to see his actual quotes. Now here's the trip part. You know what I'm saying? And this research this guy. This guy's is he's a trip. You know. So let's talk about jazz. Okay, now what I just showed you on the map, that Texas and borderline Central America, which the Mexicans was coming over to Texas. Texas was the first state to call cannabis a narcotic. This guy, Harry Anslinger, he was the director of the Bureau of Narcotics, and he the one was pushing the narrative, the propaganda agenda that marijuana was bad for you. It can kill you. It can cause you suicide. Check out that movie called Reefer Madness. Okay, before I get into the jazz part, it's something else I wanted to show you guys real quick. Which you're gonna now this is part of the propaganda. This is doing. Remember, they was calling the Mexicans marijuana menace. Okay, I googled marijuana menace 1930s. You have all these ads and the movie Reefer Madness. You know, Reefer Madness. They had all these quotes and stuff, political campaigns. They had war on dope getting results. They prosecuting Mexicans. Look at this. This is an article. If the Mexican nation locoed by a particular weed, they talking about, you know, how they pushing this narrative that these Mexicans is coming over here, they high, they're gonna kill you, they're gonna they just promoting fear into white America through their propaganda. Okay? It's assassination on youth. And you notice all these ads and stuff are white people, right? So they telling you, already show you what propaganda means. They just basically they're saying this can happen to you. This was going to happen to you. They criminalize Mexicans and stuff, but in the movies and stuff, they showing white America, this smoking this reefer can potentially cause you to lose your mind, you crazy, and you become a murderer, suicidal, all types of stuff. Okay? And this is what they did. So white America feeds into the fear and gets scared and get on board with, well, we need to outlaw that, not knowing that they speaking against the Mexicans. And they know that some of these white people going to get caught up. This casualty of war. They know some of these white people going to get caught up, but the majority of the people that smoking marijuana is Mexicans. Okay. So let's go back to the jazz thing, what I was talking about. See, jazz music is a music genre. Jazz is a music genre that originated in the African American community of New Orleans, Louisiana, United States, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with its roots in blues and ragtime. Okay? So now that, you smoking weed, you listen to the music, listen to jazz music and stuff, and you're talking about your problems and stuff, and you're talking about what's going on in society, and it's fun. You could dance to the music, and you could, release some of your pain on the dance floor. You know what I'm saying? Ease some of your mind, because now you could socialize with other people that's going through the same thing. And white people gravitated towards jazz. You had some, you probably had some white jazz musicians that was playing jazz and everything. They socialized their, like I said, it's very important that you understand that they socialize their problems with the music, and now everybody's coming together. And now if you coming together in a music scene, then you're gonna have some type of sex, or you gonna have some type of relationship. You can have a potential relationship with the opposite race, and that's what they really don't want, you know. And like I said, New Orleans is right beside Texas. So, and jazz is the birthplace. The birthplace is New Orleans. It's originated in New Orleans. So if we could criminalize, according to the dude quote, they want to criminalize. Let me look for it for jazz. What do you say about jazz? Marijuana is taken by musicians. See, and I'm not speaking about good musicians, but the jazz type. Now, what type of race is specializing in jazz music? The black race. So although they don't use these words like color, like we would say, okay, it's right in our face. This how they hide in plain sight. But not saying black people or African American or niggers or Negroes, where back in the day they did say Negroes, but they really want to push these laws without targeting a certain race. So they say, oh, it's the music. It's in the jazz music. It's in the jazz community. Oh, no, not rock and roll, which rock and roll was black music too. But about time, this probably white people took over rock and roll, or was in the midst of taking over rock and roll. But we're talking about jazz music. Okay. So this is enough information that I'm giving you guys about how every time they talk about the war on drugs, they are really targeting a special racial group. During the early 30s, when they went against alcohol, it was the Indians. You know what I'm saying? When they was talking about Indian hemp, because Indians smoke hemp for medical reasons and stuff, and they want to try to ban that. Okay, you can't bring it over here. You can't bring it over here. They didn't criminalize you yet for it. Then Texas made cannabis a narcotic, and then now you got the Bureau of Narcotic going in on it, passing these laws and stuff, making these harsh laws, giving you a life sentence of possession. And you check out the timeline of how marijuana was so much a problem. Government creating all these laws and stuff against marijuana. Now, this is the 1930s, and then in the 2000, like the 2006 or something like that, when they made it okay to sell marijuana. Now you got all these marijuana factories and plants and stores and people. Now you can order marijuana like you're ordering food, and people bring marijuana right to your doorstep now. But you look at 2000 up until they up in, from 1930 up until 2000. That's at least 70 years of being of people of color, whether it be Mexicans, whether it be Latinos, Hispanics, blacks, people of color being criminalized by using marijuana. It didn't bother them. It didn't bother the white race, but you talking about close to 100 years, almost 100 years now, 70 years, you know what I'm saying, of them criminalizing blacks. And then that's, uh, it became, it's okay to sell marijuana. It wasn't that bad, and I definitely need to show this on the flip side of, let me see. They did have people that spoke against marijuana, spoke against the use of marijuana, and they knew that this propaganda that they was passing was basically BS. And part of the United States knew that. They knew that it wasn't as bad as they say it was. He was just pushing this propaganda, and they did a study on it, and they was trying to combat what he was saying about marijuana and how bad it was, and he don't know what he's talking about. Hitler used propaganda to get the people on his side. A lot of people use they use propaganda now to basically get you to buy into what they want you to buy into, whether it be advertisement and stuff. Like, they want you to smoke a certain cigarette, they use a popular movie star to smoke Marlboros, or it make it look cool that he's drinking on a certain thing. Then when you watching the movie and you fascinated with the character, you want to know what he's smoking or what he's drinking. And then next thing you know, you go to the liquor store, or you go to the store and you buying the same type of cigarettes. And this is how these companies became rich and wealthy, because they advertise. They call product placement. They put certain products and movies and stuff to get you to buy into these products that they want to sell. Check out, if you do some history. I might do a video on propaganda and what I learned about propaganda and how they use propaganda to basically get you to fall into what they want to fall into. Santa Claus, they use propaganda for Santa Claus, because Santa Claus wasn't a great figure at one point. If you listen to the song, he checking his list, he's checking it twice to see whether you naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. It's really it sound happy, and it sound enjoy. It sound like it sound joyful and all this, but it really is not. Kris Kringle was not a good guy. He was there. He would put coal in your sock to let you know that you was bad. They give the good kids toys. Kris Kringle had sharp teeth. He smoked a pipe. He had his little demons was these elves that would go around scaring kids. That's how come kids, the mother and father used to use. Okay, you better be good if you want something for Christmas, and they use that to get their kids to do good in school, to do good at home. If you're not, Santa Claus is coming to town, and he gonna know whether you naughty or nice. That's a creep. Kris Kringle was a creep. Check him out. But another way that they use propaganda, that's just one way. Another way they use propaganda, smoking was outlawed, especially women smoking in public was outlawed. So the guy, the grandfather of propaganda who introduced propaganda to America was Sigmund Freud's nephew, right? And I'm gonna do a video on him. I can't recall his name right now, but what he did, he knew that the media was at this place where as though they was doing some type of news segment or whatever, and he organized a group of women to walk down the street smoking cigars. So that was shocking to them. So next thing you know, they started to focus on these women smoking cigars, smoking cigarettes, and because they want their freedom or whatever, they did it for. But I might have the story, but I'm just vaguely remembering this story about propaganda when I was reading about propaganda and how it came about in the United States. You got to ask yourself, another thing, you got to ask yourself, why do you eat bacon and eggs for breakfast? Because breakfast wasn't bacon and eggs, and what we eat today, pancakes, bacon and eggs, that wasn't a thing back in the early 30s or anything. Pork belly, the sale of pork wasn't selling. People wasn't eating pork. So therefore they started promoting breakfast in movies and they got these slogans about pork, the other white meat, and they use all these slogans and stuff. And you pay attention to these slogans and the words that they use, because words are spells, and they cast these spells on us through these words and stuff. And that's what they use to promote what they wanted to promote, to have us buy into. So a lot of buy into what they want us to buy into. Now, and a lot of things you be thinking that these decisions that you're making throughout life is your own decision. But really, it's been influenced and persuaded by the media, by music, by other people, by conversations, what you see on TV and everything. Propaganda is huge. So now that's when you got the National Enquirer, you got all these news shows, all these the gossip shows that's on TV, on the internet, is promoting certain things. It's propaganda. If you keep telling a person a lie, they eventually they will believe it. But that's just my video of this guy, Anslinger, and how he became the first person through the Bureau of Narcotics to promote this war on drugs, and how to criminalize certain racial groups through their habits. Okay, through their habits. And how they like to say, they flood the black community with drugs, and next thing you know, they create all these harsh laws, because we got to get this. We got to get this war on drugs is getting out of hand. So we got to come up with these harsher laws. What they do, and you have to understand this. This is one, and I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna end this video. What they do, they have a solution, but they create a problem so they can give you the solution. You understand? For instance, if I want to promote blue shirts and everybody's wearing red shirts, I will come up with a problem or issues with you wearing red shirts. The red dye can cause you to break out. Your skin can break out. The red shirts can cause cancer. The red shirts can do this, but the blue shirts can protect you from the sun, from UV rays. It can protect. I'm just making this up, but I'm just showing you an example of how a person can use propaganda to have you buy into what they want you to buy into. Now, my solution is I want to sell my blue shirts, but everybody wearing red shirts. I gotta say things and criminalize and show you problems or issues you're gonna have if you continue wearing red shirts. And you not knowing and you believe in me, then I'm a lie with statistics. Every 9 out of 8 out of 10 people wearing blue shirts through my studies have created colon cancer or something like that. And then next thing you know, you're like, okay, I can't be wearing these red shirts. So buy this blue shirt, it can help prevent that. Then next thing you know, you buying these blue shirts. This sounds simple and stupid, asinine that these propaganda agendas are. But if you don't understand the game, you will fall right in line to what they want. So check out this video. I gave you a lot of information, and do your own research.